Tonight we explore a great question. Is the human mind ruled by repressed drives or guided by deeper archetypes? On one side is Sigmund Freud, the father of psychoanalysis. Freud believed that beneath our conscious awareness lies a reservoir of repressed desires, conflicts, and fears. He argued that much of human behavior is driven by these hidden forces, often in disguise. On the other side is Carl Jung, once Freud's student but later his critic. Jung accepted the unconscious, but expanded it. He believed it contained not only personal repressions, but also collective patterns of meaning, archetypes that shape myths, dreams, and human imagination. Freud and Jung will now debate.
When I first began listening to my patients, I noticed something that every physician before me had overlooked. People suffer from symptoms they cannot explain, paralysis without injury, obsessions with no rational cause, phobias of harmless things. When pressed, they speak of childhood scenes, of disturbing fantasies, of feelings they themselves call absurd. These are not inventions. They are fragments of what the conscious mind cannot accept. And so I came to see the unconscious not as an abstract idea, but as a necessity. The mind pushes what is forbidden, what is unbearable, into a hidden chamber. Yet it never remains silent there. It returns in dreams, in slips of the tongue, in neurotic symptoms. This unconscious, as I have studied it, is not some divine or cosmic reservoir. It is not a library of myths or symbols handed down from antiquity. It is a psychic mechanism grounded in biology. Human beings are driven, above all, by instinctual forces, particularly the sexual and aggressive drives. These are the energies that civilization demands we repress. They are disguised, censored, hidden behind masks, but they remain the true engine of psychic life. The unconscious is therefore a battleground of forbidden wishes and defenses against them. If we want to understand human behavior, we must look at this interplay of instinct and repression, not at vague archetypes. My science begins not in mythology, but in the consulting room, where the human being reveals through his symptoms the tyranny of his repressed drives.
You are right, Sigmund. That repression is real and powerful. I too have seen patients tormented by what they could not consciously face. But when you insist that the unconscious is only a cellar of unwanted drives, you flatten the human spirit into a single dimension. My own experience with patients and my study of myths, art, and religions convinced me of something larger. The unconscious does not merely repress, it also expresses. It produces images that are not reducible to childhood wishes. Consider the dream of a patient who has never read mythology, yet dreams of a great serpent guarding a treasure, or the recurring vision of a wise old man, a guiding figure that appears to countless individuals in moments of crisis. These are not personal repressions, they are archetypes, primordial patterns that belong not to the individual alone, but to humanity as a whole. The unconscious, as I have come to see it, has two layers. The first is personal, containing memories and repressions unique to each person. But beneath this lies the collective unconscious, a deeper stratum of shared symbols and structures. It is as if every human being is born with a psychic inheritance, just as we are born with a biological one. This is why myths of creation, of death and rebirth, of heroism and betrayal, repeat across cultures, separated by oceans and centuries. They are not taught, they are discovered anew in each soul. To see the unconscious only as a cauldron of repressed drives is to miss its guiding, creative, and even spiritual dimension.
Carl, what you call archetypes, I must regard as disguised remnants of infantile life. The serpent in a dream, the wise old man, the mother goddess, these are not timeless entities. They are elaborations of the child's earliest experiences, the awe of the father, the dependency upon the mother, the fear of castration, the longing for protection. When we trace them back, Again and again we find the same origin in repressed childhood wishes. To say that these images are collective is, in my view, to mystify what can be explained through the family drama each child undergoes. Moreover, your conception of a collective unconscious risks abandoning science for mythology. You may be fascinated by symbols that repeat across cultures, but anthropology can explain this through shared human conditions. All people are born of mothers, all fear death, all must struggle against nature. Of course, their stories resemble one another, but to leap from resemblance to a claim of some metaphysical archetype is Psychology must remain rooted in observation, in the analysis of symptoms, in the recognition of repression and instinctual conflict. The unconscious is not a treasure chest of symbols, it is a battlefield of drives. And it is this struggle that explains both neurosis and culture itself.
Sigmund, I do not deny the family drama, nor do I reject your discovery of repression. But when you insist that every symbol is merely a disguise for infantile wishes, you commit an error of reduction. You strip symbols of their power, treating them only as masks for something else, never as realities in their own right. Yet in the clinic, I saw that patients who confronted their dreams not only as wish fulfillments, but as messages found, healing that analysis of repression alone could not bring. They discovered guidance, direction, meaning. Consider the figure of the shadow, that dark double who embodies what the ego rejects, or the anima and animus, inner images of the feminine and masculine that shape how we love and struggle. These are not inventions of culture or childhood. They appear spontaneously, even in those with no exposure to myths. They suggest that the psyche is structured in ways deeper than the individual biography. The unconscious, then, is not merely a sewer of repression. It is a field of potential, a source of both danger and wisdom. If humanity is to grow, it must listen not only to its repressed drives, but also to the archetypes that call it toward wholeness.
Act 1 showed us two different pictures of the unconscious. Freud sees it as a hidden room where our forbidden wishes are locked away. Jung sees it as something wider, a place of patterns and symbols shared by all humanity. But how do we glimpse this hidden world? The most common doorway is our dreams. The question now is simple. Are dreams just secret wishes in disguise? Or are they messages carrying deeper meaning?
Dreams may look strange, but they are not random. They have a purpose. They allow us to fulfill wishes that we cannot admit while awake. But because these wishes are often forbidden, too shocking, too childish, they get disguised. That is why dreams look confusing. The mind takes the raw desire and dresses it up in symbols. I once had a patient who dreamed of climbing a long staircase, step after step, sweating and struggling. On the surface, he thought it was just about being tired. But when we looked deeper, the staircase was a hidden image for sexual desire. The effort, the breathlessness, sit was the body expressing what the conscious mind had repressed. Again and again, I found this pattern. The dream hides what the dreamer does not want to face. You can look for myths or symbols if you like, but the truth is simpler. Dreams are masks for wishes.
I agree that dreams show hidden parts of us, but I do not believe they are only about repressed wishes. Many dreams do not reveal desire at all. Instead, they balance our lives. If someone is too logical, their dreams may bring wild and emotional images. If someone is too busy with outer life, their dreams may show inner voices they have ignored. In this way, dreams act like nature itself. They try to restore balance, and often dreams show images that go beyond personal life. People dream of the same things: caves, snakes, wise guides, journeys, floods. These are not learned from books or culture. They are older, deeper. They are what I call archetypes, patterns, shared by all humans. I once worked with a patient who dreamed of entering a dark cave, where he found a glowing jewel guarded by a snake. Freud would say this is a sexual symbol, but I see it as something more. The snake is danger and transformation. The jewel is the treasure of the self, the goal of growth. The dream is not only about desire, it is about becoming whole.
Carl, your words are poetic, but poetry is not science. When you say that a snake is transformation, or that a jewel is the self, you are floating in myth. I prefer to stay grounded in facts. Patients do not come to us with cosmic questions, they come with pain, with symptoms. They cannot live because their repressed wishes weigh them down. The dream gives us the key. By tracing the images back to childhood, to the family drama, to forbidden desires, we uncover the truth. Take the dream of the snake again. What does the patient associate it with? Often it is the phallus, the cave, the mother's body. The wish is sexual. The conflict is repression. The disguise is the dream. When we see this, we can free the patient. To talk of archetypes and myths is to comfort, perhaps, but it is not to cure.
But is it really freedom to tell every patient, no matter their dream, that it is all about childhood sexuality? I have seen people grow tired of such answers. They sense there is more, and I have found that when they listen to their dreams as if the dream is a voice, something new happens. They discover guidance, not just repression. A flood in a dream may not only be about desire, it may be about being overwhelmed by life and the need to start fresh. A wise old man in a dream may not only be a disguised father, it may be an inner guide. Dreams speak not only of the past, but of the future. They point us forward to what we could become. That is why I call them messages from the deeper self. They are not just the royal road to hidden desire, they are the royal road to the soul.
Act 2 has shown us two roads into the world of dreams. Freud tells us they are masks hiding forbidden wishes, the secret stage where our childhood desires play out. Jung tells us they are also messages, balancing our lives and drawing from ancient patterns that guide us. From dreams, our debate now moves to something even larger: religion and myth. Are gods and sacred stories just illusions born of fear and desire, as Freud argued? Or are they expressions of the archetypes, as Jung believed, giving shape to the deepest truths of the human soul?
When I look at religion, I see a grand illusion. It is the childhood of humanity, a way to calm fear and give order to what we do not understand. People create gods as they once depended on their fathers. The father was protector, lawgiver, punisher. When the child grows into an adult, the world feels too vast and frightening to face alone. And so, mankind projects the father image onto the sky. God is the magnified father. Religion is wish fulfillment. This does not mean religion is meaningless, has shaped laws, morals, and societies. But we must not mistake it for truth. The sacred stories are not revelations from a higher world. They are dreams of humanity, disguising our desires and our helplessness. Myth is nothing but the coded language of our unconscious wishes. To cling to it is to remain in childhood. To outgrow it is to enter maturity, where reason, not illusion, must guide us.
I cannot accept that religion is only an illusion. If it was so, how could it have carried such power for so many centuries, across so many cultures? My studies showed me that myths and religions are not simply projections of father figures, they are expressions of the collective unconscious. They carry archetypes, universal images that rise from the depths of the human mind. The story of the dying and rising God, for example, appears in Egypt, in Greece, in Christianity, in countless traditions. This is not a coincidence. It is the archetype of death and rebirth, an image of the psyche's own process of transformation. When a person suffers and then is renewed, the myth speaks through them. Religion gives form to these deep experiences. To dismiss it as illusion is to deny the very structure of the psyche.
But Carl, religion is dangerous precisely because it gives illusion the mask of truth. You see in myths the language of archetypes. I see in them the chains that bind men. When people believe the stories are true, they submit to authority, to dogma, to superstition. Religion comforts, yes, but it also cripples thought. It feeds on our infantile longing for protection, for an all-seeing Father. Take Christianity, the doctrine of sin, the promise of forgiveness, the eternal Father in heaven. These are not archetypes, they are transparent wishes. They soothe guilt, they calm fear, they promise safety. But at what cost? At the cost of truth. Science must sweep away these illusions if humanity is to stand on its own feet. Religion is not a guide to the soul, it is a crutch for the weak.
And yet, Sigmund, when people throw away religion in the name of reason, do they not often fall into despair? In my time I saw the rise of nihilism, of violence, of emptiness. People who think they have outgrown myth find themselves haunted by it in new forms: political ideologies, cults of leaders, blind devotion to nation or race. The archetypes do not vanish when we deny them. They return in disguise. That is why I believe it is wiser to face them consciously. Religion, for all its dangers, gives shape to these forces. It provides images, rituals, stories that help the human mind relate to what is greater than itself. When I study a myth, I do not ask whether it is literally true. I ask what archetype speaks through it, what meaning it carries for the psyche. Religion is not childish illusion, it is humanity's language for the deepest parts of the soul. If we lose that language, we risk being possessed by it in darker, unconscious ways.
In Act 3, we explored religion and myth. Freud sees them as comforting illusions, disguising our fears and wishes. Jung sees them as expressions of archetypes, guiding us toward meaning and growth. Now, the debate turns inward to the self itself. What is the human psyche made of? Is it a battlefield of conflicting drives, as Freud argues, or a journey toward wholeness through archetypes and individuation, as Jung believes?
The human psyche is not a smooth, harmonious entity. It is divided. At the center of our mind lies conflict between the ID, our instincts and desires, the superego, our conscience, shaped by rules and society, and the ego, the part that mediates between them. Life is a constant negotiation. Our drives push us toward what we want. Our conscience pushes back, and the ego struggles to keep balance. When we feel guilt, anxiety, or shame, it is this conflict speaking. We are pulled in different directions, often without realizing it. The self is not a single, unified voice. It is a dialogue, often a struggle, among parts of the mind that do not always agree. Our sense of identity, then, is fragile. It is built on compromises, on the suppression of desires we cannot admit. To understand the self, we must understand these hidden drives and conflicts. The mind is not a simple story of growth, it is a battlefield where instincts and rules fight for dominance.
I agree that the psyche is complex, but I see it as more than a battlefield. Yes, there are conflicts, but there is also a natural movement toward balance, toward wholeness. I call this process individuation, the journey of becoming a complete self. The self is not just ego or repression, it is an integration of all parts of the psyche, including the conscious, the personal unconscious, and the archetypes of the collective unconscious. For example, the shadow, the part of ourselves we reject, must be recognized and accepted. The anima or animus, the inner feminine or masculine, must be integrated. Only by facing these hidden parts can a person become whole. The self is not born finished. It is a lifelong process of growth, guided by both inner drives and universal patterns. The psyche naturally seeks this balance, even when the conscious mind resists.
Carl, your idea of integration is comforting, but it is not the way human life actually functions. Most people cannot recognize or accept their unconscious drives. They are hidden, repressed, denied. The ego struggles, often in vain, to hold the id in check. Conflicts are resolved not by balance, but by compromise, by symptoms, by defense mechanisms. A man does not integrate his forbidden desires. He finds ways to avoid them. He may create obsession, phobia, or neurosis. The notion of a self that grows naturally toward wholeness ignores the power of repression and instinct. Civilization is built on repression. Morality, law, and society all require it. We do not have the luxury of assuming the psyche will achieve harmony. To understand identity, we must understand conflict, not idealized growth. The self is shaped by struggle, not by integration of universal patterns.
But Sigmund, if we focus only on conflict, we miss the possibility of growth. Yes, humans struggle. Yes, drives clash. And yes, repression shapes our lives. But there is also guidance in the unconscious, symbols that point us toward understanding ourselves. The self is not merely a product of compromise. It is a journey toward balance, even if the path is difficult and uneven. When people confront their shadow, recognize the inner guide, or interpret the messages of dreams, they move toward wholeness. The self is alive, dynamic, and creative. It is not merely the arena of instincts, it is also the place where meaning emerges. Identity is not only what conflicts define, it is also what the psyche calls us to become.
Act 4 explored the self. Freud sees it as a battlefield, driven by instinct and repression. Jung sees it as a journey toward wholeness, guided by archetypes. Now, in our final act, we ask the ultimate question: what path should humanity take? Are we bound by our repressed drives? Or can we grow by listening to the deeper patterns of the psyche?
Human life is shaped by forces we cannot fully control. Our instincts push us toward desire and aggression, and society demands that we restrain them. Civilization depends on this restraint, on repression. Without it, there would be chaos. We may dream of freedom or self-actualization, but reality is harsher. The human mind is not naturally wise or guided by universal patterns. It is often blind to its own motives. Our path forward is not through mystical guidance or archetypes. It is through understanding the forces that drive us, recognizing the conflicts within, and finding ways to live with them. Therapy, self-reflection, science, these are the tools that allow us to manage the unconscious, to prevent it from controlling us. Freedom is not perfect happiness. It is the ability to face our desires honestly, to act consciously despite them. Humanity progresses not by listening to symbols or myths, but by confronting reality, by knowing what drives us and finding balance through reason.
I agree that understanding ourselves is essential, but the mind is not only a machine of desire, it is also a well of meaning. Humanity cannot thrive if we ignore the deeper patterns within us. Archetypes, symbols, myths, these are not distractions from reality. They are guides. They point to the paths that help us grow, to experiences that integrate the psyche. Two ways we can find balance between the inner and outer worlds. We are not condemned to live only in conflict. When we recognize the archetypes that shape our lives, when we confront the shadow, when we engage with dreams and myths consciously, we move toward wholeness. This path is not easy, and it is never complete, but it is the way the human psyche naturally calls us to grow. Civilization and culture are enriched when we pay attention not only to what we repress, but also to what the psyche reveals to us.
Carl, I admire your optimism, but I remain cautious. People are not naturally drawn to archetypes, and symbols alone do not solve conflict. They may inspire, but they do not prevent suffering or aggression. The unconscious is powerful, often destructive, and civilization is a fragile construct held together by rules and repression. To rely on dreams, myths, or archetypes as guides is to risk illusion. Reality must come first. Knowledge, discipline, and honesty about desire are the only reliable paths forward. We cannot escape our instincts, but we can understand and manage them. That is the true way for humanity to survive and flourish.
And yet, Sigmund, to focus only on repression is to see the world in half. Humanity is not only driven by instinct, it is also capable of meaning, creativity, and transformation. The archetypes are always present, pointing us toward integration, insight, and wholeness. If we ignore them, we risk letting the unconscious rule unconsciously, as you have said. But if we engage with it consciously, we gain guidance, wisdom, and balance. Our path forward is to face both realities, to know our instincts and conflicts, and to heed the deeper patterns that call us to growth. In that balance lies the possibility of a life that is not only controlled, but also rich, meaningful, and whole.
Freud has shown us the human mind as a battlefield driven by instinct and shaped by repression. Jung has shown us a deeper dimension, where archetypes, symbols, and myths guide the psyche toward growth and wholeness. The human mind may be both these things at once, a place of conflict and a well of meaning. Which side do you find most convincing? Do you believe we are ruled by our repressed drives, or guided by deeper patterns within us? Share your thoughts and join the conversation.